Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to take a couple minutes for people to join, so just bear with us for 1 or 2 more minutes. Let's see, it's 1 o'clock on the dot. We'll just give everyone 30 more seconds or so, and then Mariah said we can get started.
Okay.
All right, I say we get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today, Future-Proofing Your Supply Chain. My name is Zach Loesch. I am the lead generation manager here at BrainSell. Thank you for your time joining. We have a few things before we get started. Just a reminder, this is a 45-minute session followed with a Q&A. The Q&A will be at the end. If you do have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to throw them in the question and answer box on the platform, and we will make sure to get to them at the end. We will also send the deck and the link to the recording shortly after this webinar session ends or first thing tomorrow morning. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And we will also have a poll coming up momentarily with which meal delivery service gift card you would like as a thank you for joining. So let me just send that poll out right now. We will track these answers and make sure to get those out shortly after this call. Again, thank you everyone for showing up live. We really appreciate it. I'm going to close the poll in a second. If you join and you weren't able to select one, we will reach out to you shortly after this. All right, and just for a quick intro, I want to shout out Mariah Flynn. Mariah, hello, how are you doing?
Everyone.
And a quick agenda before we get started, and I pass it back to Mariah. We just want to go over Netstock at a glance. Why smarter planning? Why are we here? The return on the investment, always important to know. The AI functionality, the AI pack, followed by a live demo, and then the audience question and answer. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Mariah.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. Hi, everyone. It's really awesome to be with you guys today. I'm so excited to chat Netstock with you. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I got my clock ready, because once I start talking about Netstock, I just keep going and going and going. But like Zach mentioned, my name is Mariah Flynn, and I'm a channel manager here at Netstock. I've been at Netstock for almost 4 years now. And I previously was actually implementing our solutions directly with our clients on the customer success team up until about a few months ago. So I've done plenty of implementations, including Sage implementations. So a little bit about who we are here at Netstock. We are a cloud-based supply and demand planning platform. We were built specifically by supply chain experts for SMBs. The people who founded the company were actually working in enterprise level supply chain, and they noticed a gap and thought that SMBs could actually really benefit from this type of technology. So they created Netstock to make it more accessible for small to medium-sized businesses. We have about 2,400 clients worldwide, And we offer 24/5 support in the application. So you experience an issue with Netstock, you can go to the chat in the app and get help within, a couple of minutes directly from our team of consultants. If you have been in the Sage ecosystem for a while, you might have heard of Sage Inventory Advisor. That is also us. We've been in the Sage ecosystem for quite some time now, and we have native integrations to Sage 100, 300, and X3. And we are now considered to be ERP agnostic, so we have the ability to handle migrations as well. So I should have mentioned this to begin with. I do just have a few slides to talk about Netstock in general and kind of get you familiarized with who we are, what we do, and our value proposition. But majority of the session is actually going to be spent in the application. So if you have any questions or anything along the way, you can always pop them in the chat. I know Zach mentioned that before, but feel free to ask questions as I move through this. So here are some of the key verticals that Netstock clients tend to fall in. It's not to say if you work in an industry outside of what we have listed on here that you're not a good fit for Netstock. I just have this up here so you can see where we play the best. We also have tons of verticalized content if you would like to see, specific pieces of functionality that help businesses in this industry, or any case study based on industry. You can always reach out to your BrainSell rep and we'll make sure that we get you the information that you're looking for. All right, so I like to talk a little bit about how and where Netstock actually falls into your overall tech stack before I get too much into functionality, because I know it can be a little bit confusing and a little bit daunting when you have all of these different solutions and what's doing what, where does it fall. So the easiest way to think about it is your ERP is always going to be your source of truth. That is your inventory control. That's where you can go in and see how many units of XYZ product you have sitting on the shelf and all of your transactional details. Netstock is here to really answer the question of how much inventory you should have, not just what you have. So simply put, we're doing your supply and demand planning. So your demand planning would be things like your forecast, and your supply planning would be recommended transactions, being those purchase orders, work orders, and transfer orders. When we hop into the application, you'll see that Netstock is an incredibly powerful tool. But for right now, I just want you to remember that your ERP is going to be your inventory control. Netstock takes the important information out of your ERP and puts it into our platform, and then gives you those optimized inventory details. Okay, and we have a quick poll question.
Yes, we do. It should be on the screen now. What is your biggest challenge when it comes to supply and demand planning? We'll give everyone 30 or so seconds. See a few rolling in. Going to close it and share the responses. All of the above.
Okay.
All right.
I love it. Awesome. That's why I ask the question, because the options on that poll question are really what we see clients struggling with before they come on to Netstock. Obviously, if you touch the supply chain in any way, shape, or form, there are thousands of different supply chain disruptions and nuances that businesses are trying to work through every single day. But the big ones that we see are issues with product mix. So we're stocking out of some products and losing customers potentially, and then overstocking of other goods, right? We have inventory that's just sitting on the shelf, tying up cash and inventory space. Another thing that businesses tend to struggle with is just forecasting in general, not just having a robust forecast, but also kind of closing the loop. And what I mean by that is having measures in place to understand how accurate that forecast was to do better forecasting in the future. And overall, a lot of businesses are trying to plan in Excel spreadsheets, and it's just not giving them the agility that they need. They're spending a lot of time, and I can say this because I used to be a buyer, a lot of time trying to just pull together the insights just to be able to execute. And Netstock is here to alleviate all of these issues. And instead of talking about pieces of functionality and how we do that, I'm going to show you that later on in the presentation with my demo. But before we get there, I like to highlight the ROI and how we solve these problems. So with Netstock, you're going to increase your forecasting accuracy. It's going to take you way less time to actually execute, so your business can spend time on more strategic efforts. We're going to reduce your inventory holding while simultaneously improving your stock availability and fill rates. And then this presentation kind of has two parts to it. I wanted to do a brief introduction into Netstock so you can learn a little bit more about who we are. But I also like to layer in some general supply chain trends into my content. So today we're going to be talking a little bit more about AI. I'm sure you guys have never heard of AI before. And I'm sure you're probably actually sick of hearing it, but we did a little bit of data collecting, and we found that 23% of SMBs have adopted AI in their supply chain planning already. And obviously, we would anticipate that number to continue to go up. And the thing about Netstock is we're here to either kick off your AI strategy in a way that's very approachable and low barrier to entry, or contribute to that AI strategy. And the main way that we do this is through our AI pack, which we released earlier this year. Our AI pack is like having a supply chain expert at your fingertips. It's a dashboard analyzer, item analyzer. It can explain reports, and we have some really cool future plans for our AI pack. But this is really a game changer in terms of adoption and just helping with businesses' supply chain education and how do we execute and what should we do when these things come up. Our AI pack helps with that. Okay, so we have a few poll questions before I head into the demo.
Yes, we do. First one is, what are you doing to currently manage your safety stock? Again, we'll leave this one up for 30 seconds or so. And I'll close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's see how we did. All right, currently everyone warehousing and it's a set of the ERP.
Okay, good to know. We'll circle back to these results when we get into the demo.
And let me launch the second one right now. Are you currently using AI in your supply and demand planning process? This one should be a little faster. I'll still give people some time. Wow, all right, we have no one currently using AI right now, but a handful of folk who want to. Love to hear
Okay, awesome, great, good to know, thank you. So let's go ahead and hop into the application so we can talk about safety stock and AI. So I'll go ahead and get this. Okay, can you see Netstock?
Yes, I can.
All right, let's keep going. So like I said, this is majority of the content to get you guys kind of to see Netstock. You can tell right off the bat, there's a ton of information in here, especially on our left-hand panel with all of the different options. My intention for you guys today is to just get a little bit of a better look and feel for the tool. Obviously, if we were to do a full-blown demo, we would have some insights on your business and can kind of tailor this a little bit better. But I like to show pieces of functionality that is applicable to every single business that utilizes Netstock, regardless of their industry. So the first thing to note about Netstock is you will see that it is web-based. up here. And we pull information from your ERP every single night, and we can also pull it more often than that, but it is a live view from your ERP. You can see here at this timestamp. The demo instance is set in the past, so that's why it says 2024. Another thing to know about Netstock before I get into some functionality pieces is that it's driven at a location level. So we'll pull all of your location information from your ERP. We also have the ability to do regional consolidations, so like virtual consolidations for businesses that either want to plan at an aggregate level or just see their supply chain insights at an aggregate level. So right off the bat, you can see that the application defaults to this really nice dashboard. The one thing to note about Netstock is that it is an exception-based application. So we're not having you guys hop in here and have to say, okay, well, where do I start, right? We like to give you all of the information that you need to execute, so you're not looking for the items that need your attention. And that starts with our dashboard. So over here on the left-hand side, I'm just going to briefly run through these different statuses to make sure that we're all tracking on the same page with the information we're seeing here. For this demo instance, the overall stock holding is 26.5 million, so Netstock knows how much stock you have at cost. And we also generate what we call our model. So our model is our desired inventory level. So this business is at 26.5 million, but the desired level is actually at 15.6 million. So everything that you see in Netstock is going to have you execute to get more towards this model number. And the reason why we're not currently at our model is because we have a plethora of items in different statuses. So we are tracking your excess stock. We're also tracking the top 5 items for every single one of these statuses. So when I say exception-based, that's what I mean. If you're trying to run an exercise on excess stock, the first piece of the puzzle is understanding which items are contributing to excess stock. But the second piece would be to do some sort of execution against that information. And Netstock will put it in order. So this is the item that is contributing the most to your excess stock. So if I'm going to do any kind of exercise, I probably want to start with these top 5 items. It's the best bang for my buck in terms of effort. Okay. We also have early warning signs with the surplus and potential stockouts. So surplus are purchase orders that are currently open that you haven't received yet, but we are anticipating are going to turn into excess once you receive it. So you would want to do things like either cancel that order or have it due later to not contribute to your excess stock when it arrives. The opposite is kind of true for the potential stockout. Right, we're predicting a stock out either before you can place a purchase order or when that next purchase order is due to arrive. And then you guys know stockouts, that's where you have 0 stock on hand. And then we're tracking possible lost sales due to not having that inventory on hand. Netstock is also tracking your fill rates, and target fill rate is a main purchasing input, and we'll review that in a moment. And then we're tracking things like stock turns and your top new items coming out of your ERP so you can more effectively manage those new items. Okay. All right. So let's talk about how we achieve those amazing points of ROI I was talking about earlier. The first is through our forecast. So I'm going to show you guys what the forecast tab looks like at an aggregate level, and then I'll show you what it looks like at an item level in a moment. But like I said before, Netstock is handling your supply and demand planning. So what that means is we read your sales history and item information out of your ERP. We run it through our proprietary forecasting algorithm, and we come up with a 12 or a 24-month forecast, depending on whatever your planning horizon is. Our forecasting algorithm is incredibly robust. We have 9 different demand types, so it's not just going to be a flat moving average based on what we're seeing with the particular good. So this is what it looks like at an aggregate level. You can see the summary of all of your sales history, and then you can see what the forecast is looking like into the future and if you've made any adjustments. And when I say aggregate level, this is actually every single item in the central store. You do have the ability to put filters on this if you want to see forecasting by product line, or if you're a buyer and you care about your own forecasts, you can pull tons of different attributes out of your ERP to be able to filter Netstock, filter reporting, things like that. So this is your aggregate level forecast. We also put it in this nice graphic over here, just a different way of looking at it. And like I said before, Netstock is paying attention to your forecasting performance. So this is really, really important when we're talking about forecasting, that we're not just talking about generating a forecast, that we have a work process to make those forecasts better. Our forecasting is only as good as we are, right? And while Netstock is generating a forecast, there will be times when there's a variance between the forecast and what you actually sold for whatever reason. But again, with the exception-based management, we put that into 2 pre-built reports for you, where the sales are exceeding the forecast, meaning that you're selling more than you're forecasting, and where the forecast is exceeding the sales. So that would be the opposite. You're forecasting more than you're selling for. So if we're talking about an ideal work process with Netstock, part of your forecasting work process would be to hop into these 2 pre-built reports, take a look at the items that are showing up on here, again, always in top 5, and making adjustments as you see fit, or just using it as an additional piece of information. Okay. All right, so that's your forecast. I also like to review the classification. So I said earlier that Netstock is going to decrease your inventory levels while simultaneously increasing your fill rates and stock availability. And the main question is, like, how in the world, how is that possible, right? So it's through grouping like items together. So Netstock has what we call a dual classification. We rank every single item based on velocity and based on value. So you can see here on my screen that I have 17 items in the AH category, that 17 items that are creating the most value for my business. And this tends to be one of the very first pieces of ROI for businesses when they install with Netstock. Simply being able to understand what items are creating the most value for their business is a game changer, right? And not only can you see the information, but you can see how the different statuses are happening in each one of these tables. So you can see, what does our demand look like? Obviously, our demand is going to be highest in the AH category. What does our excess look like? Oh, wow, most of our excess is sitting in inventory that's not moving, right? So some of these things that you would expect to see, we actually are able to quantify it based on our classification. But the main reason for our classification is to actually use it to set up our purchasing policies. So by grouping like items together and setting up purchasing policies that way, your business has a better way of executing, right? So if you think about it, you're ordering your faster moving items, or the items that are creating the most value for your business, far more often than you're ordering slow movers, right? So that's why Netstock is designed that way. So you have the ability to set your replenishment cycle and your target fill rate based on the classification of the good. And I'm just going to bring this down a little bit so you can see the full screen. Another thing that you can do on this screen is actually model changes to these settings. So you can, key in the different changes, hit apply policy, and it'll actually show you what's happening at an aggregate level across your supply chain when you make changes to these different inputs. Obviously, Netstock also has ways to create policy overrides to these settings if you have certain suppliers or item lines or whatever it may be that have to have unique purchasing policies. Netstock also has the ability to support that. Okay. And how we get this item classification is just based on a classic Pareto rule. So that's how we get the A, B, and C and the HML. Okay. All right. So now we're going to hop into a specific item so I can show you what the item screen looks like in Netstock. So you can just search. So you can see here, I just searched the product code and now it's coming up. Okay, so a lot of information on the screen. I'm going to briefly walk through it, but this is our item inquiry screen within Netstock, and this will exist for every single item location combination. And what we're seeing here is basically the details of how we're trying to plan this particular good. On the details panel, you'll see most of this information we're grabbing from the ERP, things like average cost, stock on hand, purchase cost. Some of these things are generated by Netstock, like I said before, our classification. These groupings come from your ERP as well. The policy panel and the inventory position panel are the two panels that work together to determine if you need to place a purchase order. The one thing to note in Netstock is that everything is dynamic based on the demand for the good. I'll talk about safety stock more in a minute, but our reorder points and our maximums are also calculated within the app. So you're no longer having to plan to like these stagnant reorder points. They'll be dynamic as the demand for the good ebbs and flows. And our inventory position panel is just basically giving us a look at what's currently going on with this good. What do we have on hand? What do we have overdue? And do we already have anything on order? Demand panel is giving us a bite-sized view of what we're looking at in terms of demand for this good. It's a little baby version of what we saw on that forecast screen, and some details about like the age of the item, what does the average forecast look like, so on and so forth. I'm going to save safety stock for a little moment later. Status here, so the different statuses, you can see that this one is okay, but you could see something like stocked out or potential stock out, the same statuses that we saw on the dashboard. You'll see that this item has an ideal order. So something to note within Netstock that creates a lot of value for businesses is our ability to manage supplier constraints. So if you have minimum order quantities or order multiples with your suppliers, we'll read that directly out of your ERP and utilize that to create our purchase order recommendations. So the days of having to say, okay, how much do I need? Oh, wait, what's the MOQ for this particular supplier? Let me make sure I get it right, are over. Netstock will read it, and those are the quantities that you'll see recommended on our orders, which we'll get to in a moment. Another really unique use case that businesses are using Netstock for is actually taking this information back to their suppliers to help understand the impact of their supplier constraints, right? If you're a business and the supplier's MOQ is having you buy 2 years worth of inventory at one time, it's really good to know that, but it's also good to be able to take that information to have more strategic conversations with your suppliers, okay? And then down here, this is where you see your actual forecast. So the blue dots are going to represent sales history that we're reading out of your ERP. You also have the ability to drill into these transactions, which is really nice. If you wanted to see what made up these sales, you don't have to go back to the ERP to see it. You can see it directly in Netstock. And then this greenish colored dot is representing our 12-month forward-looking forecast, okay? And like I said before, it could be 12 or 24 months, depending on your business. Some are a better fit for a longer planning horizon, okay? Another thing about the forecast is you can manage it at the lowest level of detail, which would be the item, but we also have download, upload functionality. If you want to download it to a CSV, make your changes and re-upload it, you can also do that as well. We can do aggregate percentage level changes. You know, if you expect 2% growth across an entire product line, you can do those types of changes in Netstock as well, okay? I'm not going to spend too much time on every single one of these tabs just for time's sake, but we do read the transactions right out of your ERP and we utilize them for planning. So we always know exactly what you have on purchase order, what's outstanding on that purchase order if you partially received against it. We read open work orders as incoming and outgoing stock, and we read sales orders as well. So we know what demand is required on the good when we're deciding if we need to place an order or not, okay? The other thing that Netstock has the ability to do, and this is specifically for my distributors out there in the audience, we have the ability to handle a central warehouse setup. So you have one location that is supplying other internal locations within your network. And why this is so important is we can roll that demand from the supplied location up to the central warehouse. So when you're buying at the central warehouse, not only do you have the demand that's happening in the other locations, you're also taking into consideration the transfer lead time to get it from the central warehouse to the final destination. So this really is a game changer because you have the scale that you need, but you also are supplying location B in enough time, okay? And Netstock will give you those transfer recommendations to supply those locations. So we'll talk about transactions in a moment, but like I said before, Netstock has the ability to give you transfer recommendations, work order recommendations, and purchase order recommendations. Okay. All right, and then we'll talk a little bit about bill of material very, very quickly here for our manufacturers in the audience. We do plan via bill of material. Your raw materials are going to be planned off of the demand of the finished good. So this is the finished good that we're looking at here, and we see the bill of material structure right out of the ERP with all of the ratios. If I go and hit one of the raw materials here, I'll be able to quickly see, okay, this raw material goes into a plethora of finished goods. If I hit this demand table, I can see this at the lowest level of detail, which is which individual finished good is driving the demand to this raw material, but also see it at an aggregate level. So across the board, what are my future requirements for this raw material to meet the demand of the finished good? Okay. So that's how we plan raw materials. We could spend a whole bunch of time talking about bill of material planning, but the visibility alone to the different demand streams really is a game changer for a lot of businesses. Okay, and now I'm going to head into the order screen. So again, I'm going to say it again, exception-based tool, and really making sure that as you work through it, you know exactly what items need your attention. So in Netstock, on our order screen, every single day, you'll see exactly what needs to be ordered for the day, okay? No more searching around, do I have a recommended order or not? You go to the order screen, and every single one of these suppliers has an item or several items that need to be ordered for that day. So you hit this little radio button here, and you can select whichever one you want. We do have an urgency metric, which helps with prioritization. But if I go ahead and hit create order, this is going to give me every single item in the recommended quantity line by line. It also gives you all of the important information that you may need to know, like what's the lead time, what's already on order, do I have this on hand in other locations, for a quick review of the recommendation. And you have the ability to amend it if you needed to. You can also amend costs. But let's say that this purchase order is good to go. I've done my review. This is where everything we do in Netstock leads us to this point, which is the downloading of the recommendation back into your ERP. So you can hit this download to ERP button, and we'll take this transaction, push it back into your ERP, and then it will exist there for you to be able to finalize it and send it out to your suppliers. Okay, so we're just not giving you the information, we're actually helping open up that transaction. But again, your ERP will always be the source of truth. Okay. And within Netstock, we also have the ability to redistribute excess. And I just have to say it, especially with things like tariffs impacting a lot of people's businesses. We have to do the best with the inventory we already have within our network. And sometimes that means that we have inventory sitting in places where it shouldn't be. So you can actually run a rebalancing of your supply chain directly in Netstock and say, hey, Netstock, tell me where I can transfer inventory between two internal locations rather than ordering externally from my supplier. So you'll have the ability to add these locations and items onto a transfer order and again, open that up and put it right back into your ERP to create that sort of ad hoc transfer. Okay, and then the last thing I have to show you, because I mentioned AI, I have to show you the AI pack in action. So if I go back to the item level and I hit this analyze button, this is actually very cool. I always love looking at it. So right now, the AI is analyzing this particular item. So what it's telling you is it's going to give you an overview of the current situation. This item is currently stocked out. You'll see, again, we take into consideration the classification to give you more insights into the importance of the good. We'll tell you why it's stocked out and the impact on the business. So what's going on with this and how many sales are you possibly losing because of the stock out? And this is my favorite part. I wish I could have like confetti come down. We also provide you with short and sometimes long-term recommendations on what you actually need to do to resolve this issue. So you can see that this is a stock out. So we're telling you to attempt to expedite existing purchase orders, even other business related activities like suspend promotions if this item's currently on promotion, right, to not contribute to the particular issue. We also have an item troubleshooter that will tell you if any of the inputs on the item appear to be off that might be contributing to this item being in this particular status. But like I said before, this is a game changer in terms of adoption and helping your supply chain organizations executing faster, smarter, better. You know, it would have taken probably a couple minutes or so to take a look at the item, decipher what's going on, and then think about what the action is. And while it's still important for you to understand the application, now you have this secondary tool to help guide you, especially as you're first starting out with Netstock. Okay. All right, and I think that's it for the application. I know that we wanted to have some time for Q&A. I don't know if we want to jump right into that, Zach, or if you have something else to add.
Or yeah, we'll definitely get into the Q&A. We had a good amount of questions there, and really just fascinating stuff with the platform. That was my first time seeing the pack in action, so really cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
There.
Yeah.
First question sort of goes along with that from the audience. Does Netstock look at potential margin / profit for desired inventory levels?
Yes, yeah, so that classification that we saw before, we do have the ability to look at it based on margin. It would depend on exactly what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to have margin and profit drive the actual plan, that would be something that actually lives outside of Netstock that we do have a solution for. So we have a solution for it all. But that would be a little bit more robust S&OP planning and would kind of fall into our sister product if you're trying to execute that way. But here at Netstock, we do have a solution to solve for that.
Wonderful, thank you. I got another one for you. What does the process look like to get on board with Netstock?
Yeah, so with Netstock, you will have a customer success consultant after you buy the tool that will guide you through the installation and education of the tool. We also do some work on just making sure that your internal work processes support Netstock. A little bit of change management in there, and it's always necessary with bringing on technology. And then we'll head towards a go live where you'll head into ongoing support. The total time definitely varies by customer. It varies by the complexity of the business, the cleanliness of the data from the ERP, your availability to learn, that kind of stuff. But we say on average, it takes about 8 weeks or so from installation to you're fully on your own and going through your first planning cycle with Netstock.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more for now. Are buyers the only people that can use Netstock?
No. So this is a common misconception that buyers are the only people that would utilize Netstock. And we actually have a really nice case study with a company called Surface Art, who's also on Sage. And one of their biggest pieces of ROI was actually utilizing NetStock as a common language to talk across all of their different functions, especially my finance folks out there who want to have a really good idea of what the inventory looks like, what's it turning like, what are we projecting into the future. You know, sales teams like to be in here just to see what's the future looking like and potentially collaborating on the forecast. So there really is a user in everyone for NetStock, and your buyers will definitely love it and be executing, but we like to plan to get whole organizations in there.
Got it. Thank you, Mariah. I think that's it for questions right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. I know we're down to 5 minutes left, but I did just want to once again reiterate and thank Mariah for her time here. Really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone for showing up. We do have a special offer as someone who attended this webinar. If you want to meet with Mariah and the Sage folk over at BrainSell, feel free to reach out. We would love to go through what exactly NetStock can do for you. If you have any, questions that may be too specific to ask on a webinar, or you just want to see it firsthand, please reach out. We'd be more than happy to show you. Feel free to use the QR code down below. Please call or email your BrainSell account manager or marketing@brainsell.com. We would be more than happy to get something set up. And once again, thank you all for joining. We really appreciate it. Mariah, is there anything you would like to say to wrap things up?
The only thing I'd like to say is that there's tons of stuff I didn't get a chance to show you, so please reach out to BrainSell. Even if you're just like, I want to learn a little bit more of the application, I'd be happy to kind of take you through all of the cool supplier performance, projection, all of the fancy stuff, other stuff that we have in NetStock.
Awesome. Thank you, Mariah. And again, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. And then, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.